Hello everyone, and welcome to Traditionally Inspired Meaningful Arts. I'm Fatmata here, and today I'm super excited to share with you all of my me-made wardrobe pieces from 2020. I have been binge watching these me-made lookbooks, and I think it's just so satisfying to see all of the pieces that you've made in a year all together, and I figured I'd give it a go and share with you what I've been up to so far. If you're new here to this channel, welcome. I hope that you'll stick around for all of the creativity and amazing things that we'll be getting into this year. If you are returning, welcome back. I know this is probably new content than what you're used to. So if you're looking for the 99 Names art series, inshallah, that will be back very soon. But I do want this to be a space where I can share all of my creative musings, and sewing has definitely been at the top of the list this year. I've known how to sew for a little over 13 years, so it's been a while, but I have never taken this much time, been this sort of intentional about my sewing ever before in my life. So it really does feel like I reintroduced myself to this medium, and I'm so glad that I did. I needed something that I could be very mindful with during quarantine and through all of the ups and downs of 2020, and sewing was absolutely it. So there's a lot to dig into. Let's go. First piece I want to show you is a dress that I made earlier in the summer, and I'm so proud of this dress for so many reasons. It's also self-drafted. I followed a number of tutorials online this summer because I wanted to make a bodice that really fit me well. I figured if I could make my own bodice, I could then throw on any sort of skirt with it, gathered, a circle skirt, and make so many different types of dresses, which I absolutely did. And for this one, I just did a simple bodice front with the 2 darts, and then opted for a gathered skirt, and it's a 2-tiered skirt, so then it has the bottom tier as well. It's so flattering, it's so easy to wear. It's a rayon material. I wore it all throughout the summer. I reached for this dress so much, and that's I think what you want to do when you spend so much time investing and pouring yourself into a garment. You want to be reaching for it, and I absolutely did. And for the inside, guys, first of all, invisible zipper. I think it's quite invisible, right? Like, if I didn't tell you there was a zipper there, would you know, right? On the inside, it's fully lined, guys. I lined it all the way until halfway down the skirt, and I just think it makes such a clean finish on the inside, and that makes me smile every single time I put this on. It's I remember someone who had seen it on Instagram when I was sharing it over the summer. They were like, "Oh, is your dress reversible?" That made me smile. It's like, it's not reversible, but I'm glad that you think that the outside and the inside look just as good. Dress number 2, I guess I should talk about this one, is the one that I'm wearing. I love this dress. This is a more recent make. Again, I used my self-drafted bodice for this one. I did the bust start, but I left out the waist start and just opted to gather it all around. I then added balloon sleeves. I'm in love with that, but this time I added this really cool detail on the cuff. I think it's just so fun. Apart from that, it is tiered. I will show videos of me sort of swishing around in this because I don't think you'll be able to see the full length of the dress from here. These ruffles took a lot of time. There is a detail that I tried out for the first time ever on my serger. I removed the left serger needle, and there's a technique that you can do where you do sort of like a rolled hem, if you will. I think that's what they call it on the serger machine. If it's called something else, I'll put it on screen for you, but I think it's like a rolled hem. And I just did that along the sleeve and passed around it twice, so it had this really thick, almost as if I put bias binding on it, like a very thin bias binding, but I think it adds a really beautiful contrast detail, and I did the same thing on all of the ruffles throughout the tiers of the skirt. So that took quite a while, and that's the same way I finished the bottom skirt as well. For the bow tie, I really wanted something that I could do around the neckline that was different than putting a zipper down the back. So with the little keyhole in the front, I get to cover that up because I have the bow tie here. And I went ahead and added the bias binding so it could really stand out. Anytime I have to leave my house, even if it's just to go for a walk in the neighborhood, go to the grocery store, I reach for this dress because it makes me feel so dressed up. The fabric is actually from Value Village. I love finding fabric at the thrift store. So if you're new to sewing, I highly recommend going to your local thrift store. You will be amazed at what you might find there. I got this fabric for $3.99 and there were 4 yards of this fabric. And from the way other people on YouTube have described cotton lawn, it feels like a cotton lawn, but I'm not certain. But it's certainly a cotton of some sort, and yeah, absolutely love it. I think I'll have this dress for ages, and it was $4. I think it definitely does not look $4. But you let me know in the comments down below. How do you think this dress turned out? And have you ever purchased fabric from the thrift store? So the third dress I want to show you is this one here. This is a gorgeous double brush poly knit fabric from G Street Fabrics. It's by far my new favorite fabric store. It's here in Maryland. If you're familiar with it, let me know if you've ever been there and if you love it as much as I do. I fell in love instantly with this fabric. It's basically like a watercolor painting and I had to have it. I made this dress using my self-drafted bodice. It's a semi-balloon sleeve. It has some elastic at the cuffs here. Very easy to wear. I did add pockets to it, so we know it's like an A++ dress. It's, I would call it like a quarter circle skirt for the most part is what I tried to draft out of this. I only got 2 yards of this fabric when I purchased it, so I knew that whatever I made, I had to be very mindful that I didn't have that much fabric. So everything was a conscious decision. Even making this 3/4 sleeves, this has such a great body and weight to it. I love this fabric. I almost only want to exclusively use double brush poly moving forward because I love it that much. So what makes this dress extra special to me, aside from it just puts a huge smile on my face every time I see it, is that I got to make a little romper for my daughter. So it's one of those mommy and me sets and I love it. So let's talk about her item. I actually cloned a romper that she has already, I think from Old Navy, and I love the fit of that romper on her. So I basically just cloned that and made this one. And what I'm really excited about, I mean, like down to the ruffles, this double brush poly, it will not, well, it's a knit, so it wouldn't fray, but it's so clean that I didn't even have to finish off the edges of this frill, and it has made it through so many different washes. She has worn this summer, and I just love it on her. I also got to practice using my snap button maker, and that just made me so happy. I figured if I was going to be making garments for my daughter or my son over the summer, it might be a great idea to invest in the little snap maker. So I also used it down along the pants as an opening to get to the diapers and things like that. And I'm super excited that one, I learned how to use it, but also I think it just gives it a really neat and professional looking finish. So I absolutely love this as well. At the end of the year, I had a week left in 2020, and I actually gave myself the challenge to finish all of my me-made garments that I had kind of put off or left to the side, and I did it. So this was one of the 20 makes that I had to actually finish, fix, or finesse before 2021. So this is a simple but effective make. Honestly, I made this more recently. You're gonna find out very soon that I became highly obsessed with G Street fabric this summer. But this fabric is super soft. It's like the softest knit that I ever felt, and there was only 1.5 yards of it left. These colors, in my opinion, are so classic. I mean, navy and tan. in khaki. So I definitely wanted to incorporate this in my wardrobe. But with only 1.5 yards of fabric, I was definitely a little bit stumped for what to make. I opted to do this wrap dress, and it actually doubles as a cardigan. So I'll pop in some videos of me wearing this as well so that you can kind of see it on. But I think it's such a really simple silhouette, something that I think I'll get a lot of uses out of, especially since I can wear it as a dress but also as a cardigan. Right. So this one, I am going to be very honest with y'all. Of all the dresses that I've made, I think this is probably, it's not my favorite make of the summer. I'll put it that way. I think a lot of that has to do with just how disappointed I am at how the fabric has held up. So I got this fabric from Joann's, and I waited for this fabric. I had gone into that store multiple times. I fell in love with this burgundy color. I thought the burgundy background with these lovely flowers was just so delicate and feminine, and I wanted it really, really badly. So finally, when it was on sale enough, I went ahead and got it. But after a couple of washes this summer, I don't know if it's picking up, but it's already started to pill and, you know, lose its color and fade and different things like that. So that was a little bit disappointing. It's not a fabric I would reach for again when I'm at Joann's, but I'm happy I have it. Like, I would much rather it be made up into this dress than to just be sort of fabric that's sitting around in my stash. So I am very grateful for it. It was great practice, and I think it's a decent dress. I wear it, I do wear it, but it's not my most favorite make of the summer for sure. I've been told it's better made than perfect, and that dress is, yeah, that's how I feel about that dress. Oh, okay, so another knit dress that I made. This fabric was also found at Value Village again, and this fabric, let me check, how much was this? I document all of my fabric. I've become that person. That's how I document it. If you want a video to show you like how I document and log all of my fabric, let me know. I'd be more than happy to do that if you need creative ideas on how to do that. It was 4 yards and 60 inches wide, and it was $3.99. And I almost only go to Value Village on Thursdays. I call it Thrifty Thursdays, and that means I get an additional 25% off. So actually this fabric was about $3 for me for 4 yards of fabric. So that's amazing. I did not use a pattern to make this dress, but I was inspired by a pattern, and I can't think of the name at the moment right now. It's just escaping me, but I will put it up on the screen. So if you're interested in a tie front knit pattern that will give you some interest to the garment that you have, help cinch in the waist just a little bit, give some shaping but not be extremely tight, I definitely recommend that pattern. Again, while I didn't use it, I definitely got a garment that was very close to what that pattern looked like. Now, I had initially planned to use this fabric for something else, so I had already cut it and stitched it up, and I hated what that garment looked like. It was just way too oversized and not flattering at all. So because of that, there are seams where maybe I would have originally not had to have had a seam, simply because I was sort of reworking the fabric. But I did gather it so that it's not as clingy on me. That's one of the things that I always struggle with knits, is to get a knit fabric flattering and have a nice fit without necessarily being tight or too revealing, right? And I think I'd be willing to give it a try again with a different type of knit. Maybe with a print. I think that would look really, really great in a print. Next one, all right, this one is another special one to me because, again, it's a mommy and me set. So I'll talk about my daughter's outfit a little bit later, but we'll start with mine. What I'm really excited about for this dress, it was actually inspired by a dress that one of my great friends, Hakima, was wearing. And I immediately, when I saw her dress online, and she was wearing a dress that was beautiful. Like, it was a yellow and blue striped dress, and they had so much fun with mixing the direction of the stripes. So when I got this fabric, this is a Joann's purchase, and I've seen it with a number of different YouTubers, so this fabric is probably not foreign to you if you've shopped at Joann's before. But I loved the play on stripes, and I definitely wanted to do that. But on top of that, guys, I made my own piping. So this was a huge win for me. So I made the piping on the collar detail, and I did that for every single layer of gathers. And what was really, really cool is that I just so happened to have the colors that I needed to bring out some of the colors in the stripes. So I had the red, the lilac, as well as this light blue color. And I just went ahead and alternated that throughout. I even added it in the back detailing. And I just love this. It has pockets, it has secret pockets. I tried my best with the pattern matching as well. So it does include a bust dart, and I feel like you can barely tell that there's a bust dart right here. Everything about this dress I absolutely love. I omitted the waist darts, and I think that's what really helps give that really flowy, airy look. I could absolutely see this in a lighter fabric being perfect for the summer. So I saved any inch of fabric that I had so that I can make my daughter something, and that's been a running theme. So I take it upon myself anytime that I can to try and reserve as much fabric, and if I have just enough, I will try and squeeze out something for my daughter so that we can match. So she got herself this nice dolman sleeve dress. Right now it fits her as a dress, but what I tried to do was make the sleeves long enough so that she can wear it as she's getting older, and then just wear it as a tunic for a while before we just have to give it up. Anytime that we can be matchy-matchy, I'm all for it. So I'm hoping to continue that trend until she doesn't want to do that anymore, you know? Before I even explain to you this dress, I just want to have you watch me twirl in this dress, because this is the first time ever that I went into Joann's and walked out with just one fabric. Not a fabric and needles, not a fabric and interfacing, not a fabric and anything else. I just wanted this. I just wanted this. I instantly fell in love with this amazing autumnal floral print. It has all of the golden honey, brown, tan, burgundy, olive green colors that I want in the fall and the winter. It's such a beautiful fabric. In this dress, I definitely learned that I love the half circle skirt silhouette, so I can honestly see myself making a lot more of that going into this year. I'm also very proud of this one. I'll give you a sneak peek. Not only is that invisible zipper, I think, very well done, but also it is lined on the inside. Because I know that I'm going to be wearing this dress in the fall and winter, I thought it was important that I line it, because I am certain that I'll be wearing it with tights. So I lined it in the skirt as well, so that it doesn't, you know, start clinging to my tights and things like that when I wear it with boots or different things. Absolutely love this dress. So a lot of the garments that I've talked to you about today have been self-drafted, but I'm really pleased that I did actually use a pattern. Now, my pattern envelope is tattered, but it's the New Look pattern. It's torn, but it's the New Look pattern 6574. I adore this pattern. As soon as I saw the silhouette on the front of the cover, I said, okay, that's one that I need to have. It was around the time that Joann's was doing their pattern sale, so I went ahead and got it. But New Look is also, I learned, quite an inexpensive pattern company, so I highly recommend their patterns. Some of the changes that I made that I wanted to point out, I lengthened it just a bit. It has a slight high-low, so it's a bit lower in the back, which is why you can kind of see the fabric there hanging down below. But I love, I don't know if this is called an empire waist, but I really like the silhouette of that. It does call for you to kind of close the entire sleeve, which I did initially. I had the sleeve closed off, but personally for me, if I'm going to make a dress that I think I would be wearing all day long, I do like for me to be able to raise the sleeves up. So I went ahead and opened it up and added a button closure so that I would be able to raise it up when I needed to. Yeah, that's all. And for the buttons on the front as well, I used like pearls. So this is for like jewelry making, but I went ahead and used them as buttons. It has an invisible zipper down the back. I did not line this garment just because this like silky type fabric was so light. What I think I'm going to do is just make a slip. I have some black, really slippery, like slip-like fabric that I'm going to use to create a slip, and that way I can use it for multiple garments instead of sewing in a lining for this particular one. I will absolutely be making this new look dress again. So again, that's new look 6574. If you're interested, I would definitely recommend that pattern. So this is another dress that I made with a pattern this year. This is Simplicity 8834. I made view A, but I used the sleeves of view B, just a little bit shorter. Again, this is one of those that I was making out of, I think, 2 yards of fabric. This was a clearance, like a blue dot fabric from Joann's. And I love the black and white print. It's another rayon, and rayon was new to me this summer, and I'm very happy I discovered rayon fabric, at least for sewing with it. I'm sure I've worn rayon before, but this was the first time that I ever sewed with it, and I really enjoyed this. I coined this my mom dress because I vividly remember my mom having a black and white sort of floral dress when we were growing up, and it just gave me so much nostalgia to have this dress on and to be running around after my kiddos. So I love this dress a lot, and it has the tie front, which I think is just a really neat detail. So now I have 2 tie front dresses. Rayon is one of those things that it's, at least for me, the rayons that I have these 2 dresses, I've noticed that the more I wash them, the softer it gets, but it also wears down the fabric a bit. So if anyone has any advice on how to kind of care for rayon, or maybe I shouldn't put them in the dryer. I'm sure I shouldn't put them in the dryer, but if you have any advice on how I can care for rayon, let me know, because I do want these dresses to last. I recognized in using patterns that I actually love sewing with patterns. While I don't do it often, I do not like the cutting part of it. I don't cut my patterns anymore. I trace them out and then cut out the tracing. And I think all of those additional steps that I'm making myself do is what makes me hate cutting patterns. But I do that because I do want to keep the pattern intact in case I switch sizes, if they discontinue the pattern. But now that I already have these 2 cut, it's simply a matter of pulling out the pieces, cutting them up. I think what I love is that the directions are there and I can pick up where I left off. I remember, being able to come back at night after I'd put the kids to bed, get on my sewing machine and just go back to the book and say, oh, I was on step 7, and then just continue on. Versus when I'm sewing my self-drafted patterns, at least earlier in the summer, I would have no idea what I was doing. I was like, what was I trying to do? Why are these 2 pieces pinned together? And I was always sort of trying to remind myself where I was in the midst of my sewing when it's a self-drafted pattern. So I'll have to, keep that in mind. I think if I have a couple of tried and true patterns and just switch out the types of fabric, maybe solids versus prints and different things like that, I'll be able to use much more of my patterns. I almost forgot to tell you about my most favorite dress. So this dress, it was an intense labor of love. Okay, I was inspired by a picture. I'll try to pop a photo of it so that you can get an idea of what I was going for, but I love the idea of these really oversized dress with these multiple tiers, super flowy and fluttery. I feel so regal in this, the high neckline of this collar that comes into a bow in the back. Oh, I love everything about it. This is actually made out of curtain panels that I picked up at Value Village. So again, very cost effective, but high impact. It was in this really, really gorgeous sage green color. So that makes me super happy. I also got to practice French seaming. And when I say practice, I mean, I practice. I don't want to yet say I mastered it, but I'm pretty close. I had to French seam every single stitch in this garment, every single seam, because the fabric frayed like nobody's business. And because it's sheer, you really wouldn't want this to sort of just be serged on the inside and left in that state. So having the seam sort of encased is such a beautiful touch to this garment. Now, I did add one step to my French seaming that isn't a part of a French seam. I top stitched at the very end. Looking back on it now, I wish I hadn't, especially in the bodice area, because it does make the French seam more visible. And typically this sort of top stitching is not included. So, you know, it's one of those things now I know for a future garment, but I still do think it's very clean and neat. So I don't mind it too much. It has a bow in the back, and hopefully you could see in the videos a bit better, but I love this dress. I did all of the French seaming on the inside as well. Here are all of the French seams on the inside. So you'll see no raw edges, everything's encased, French seamed all along the armholes, very beautiful, and even on all of these gathers. Gathering each and every single one of those, and I could not use my ruffler foot for some reason, so I did have to manually do all of the gathers by hand and then stitch them in place and then encase them in a French seam. This was by far, hands down, my longest make for all the dresses that I made. It took me the longest to make this, but yeah, I wouldn't have changed a thing. Love it, love it, love it. I could tell you like 3 different things that I did wrong in this, but honestly, I just want to have a moment to appreciate this dress. I'm not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about what went wrong. We're just going to appreciate the fact that it's made, the fact that it was a thrift flip of sorts from curtains to a beautiful dress, and the fact that I think overall it looks very, very chic and high-end at the end of the day, and I love it. I wanted to show you all of the wearable toiles that I made in 2020 as well. So a wearable toile is basically like a wearable muslin. It's a trial run of your garment in a fabric that might be more inexpensive. So typically folks would use muslin. I tend to do all of my wearable toiles in Ankara fabric, so African wax print, mainly because I have a lot of it on hand and it does not stretch. So for anything that I'm testing out that's meant to be a woven, I love using it because the fabrics are so dynamic, colorful. I know I'm going to wear it and get tons of use out of it. So to begin, I think one of the first pieces actually I made this summer was this dress right here. And it is a clone of a White House Black Market dress that I have. It's like a high-low cut dress that I absolutely love. And so I decided to recreate it. It has princess seams. It's an 8-panel dress. So there are 4 panels across the front and 4 panels across the back. Princess seams on both the back and the front bodice. And then it just flares out. There is no waistline seam in this dress because each of the panels kind of goes from the bodice all the way out into the skirt. One of the things that I will say when I drafted the pattern, I recognized that it eats up a ton of fabric because you'll end up with a lot of dead space once you do the bodice really, really small and then fan out into this huge skirt. Then all of that excess space is sort of kind of just there. So I definitely laid out my pattern in a way to economize as much fabric as I could. It has pockets, so that's always lovely when you have a dress with pockets. I also lined the top half of the dress. I just had this red, I think it's a cotton fabric. I had this red fabric lying around because it was a wearable toile. I wasn't really interested in matching the fabrics or doing anything like that. I just wanted to make sure it was lined. So I love that. I love that I did that, especially since, again, this is one of the first things that I made, and I was already noticing that I was taking sewing a bit more seriously this year than I had in the past. I wanted the insides to look just as lovely as the outside, and I think I succeeded. I really, really love this dress. Oh, next up is this yellow and blue number. So again, a wearable toile. I self-drafted a princess seam bodice, so I definitely wanted to give it a try. And in order to really accentuate the fact that it was a princess seam so I could see how it fit, I used contrasting fabrics here. So I have this lovely, really bright yellow. It has some browns and navy in there. And then I used as a contrasting fabric this lovely Ankara print, which has, of course, predominantly the navy, but the same yellow and white accents. And I think they pair well together. I also included that fabric on the sleeve, and I learned that a quarter circle skirt does not fit me well. So it's not the best silhouette for me. What actually ended up happening is the quarter circle skirt fit me around the waist, but did not flare out enough by the time it came to my hip. So there was actually a gap. So I had to go back in and insert the same contrasting fabric just to get it to close. So that was a really great lesson for me. So I can do quarter circle skirts if it's a stretchy fabric, but it's probably not a really great idea for wovens, or I just have to take that into account and kind of slant it out more than the pattern would suggest. So it was really nice to kind of learn all of those things with that garment. I tried to do a little bit of a ruffle collar detail. Didn't show too much, but it's fine. This is right. So here we have my first attempt. This was my first attempt at a wrap dress this summer. I love the idea of wrap dresses. I think they're really nice. They give a great silhouette, but I'd never made a wrap dress before. So I took my basic bodice block that I have and just sort of extended it from the inner shoulder all the way across to get the bodice front. So it does have the bust darts and the waist darts in the top of the wrap. And for the skirt, I wanted it to kind of flare out to be A-line. Initially, it did not wrap all the way over. It was ill-fitting, and what I had to do was go on the inside. So I went on the inside wrap and borrowed some of that excess fabric. I then replaced it with this really, really slinky, it's almost like, I plan to use it for lining, so I call it lining fabric, but it's stretchy. So I went ahead and inserted that. This now makes the wrap dress fully closed. I don't have fear of the wrap dress sort of blowing in the wind and exposing me. I made sure that went all the way down to the bottom, so I'm very happy. So happy accident, I guess. And I then added that bit of fabric that I had borrowed back to the front to extend it all the way over. And in order to kind of camouflage all of that and make it a bit longer at the very bottom, I added this ruffle. I have mixed feelings about the ruffle. It wasn't an intentional part of the design. I think it works. In the future, of course, I will just use the fabric that I have enough of to make this wrap dress. But all in all, I think I've spent so much time fixing and fiddling with it that I have grown to love it. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the lessons that it taught me, including shearing. So shearing is probably something, if you have been watching any other sewing channels last year, you probably heard someone mention shearing because everyone was shearing. Basically, it's when you put elastic thread in the bobbin of your machine, and then it allows you to make woven or non-stretch fabric stretchy. And I've never seen stretchy Ankara fabric, so to be able to stretch this gives me a lot of joy, and hopefully I'll be able to use that technique more and more in the future. I only did it to the cuffs of the sleeves to, again, give it a bit of a poof because they were a little bit oversized. This wrap dress also has pockets. That's a running theme in a lot of the looks that I made earlier in the summer. All right. We're gonna get into some of the separates that I made, so I'm going to switch out the rack and we'll be right back. Oh gosh, let me just wait until I do what I'm trying to do. When you're editing this nippy, I'm sorry. It's okay. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is what I'm saying. All right.